Altered Stakes is the 20th episode of the 12th season of CSI, and as always, there will be spoilers as I discuss what happens in this. Honestly, I found this to be a very boring episode. It's very mundane. There was one moment where things started to get a little bit interesting, and then very quickly it just went downhill again. I found this to be really tedious. And I think this is actually the first CSI episode, I've only watched it from season 12, where I actually found it to be dull. There might have been one more, but I found this to be a type of story that any crime drama could do. I've mentioned before, one of the brilliant things with CSI is that we get a lot of information about forensics. They don't hold back when it comes to gory and graphic content. In that regard, it is quite unique. This story doesn't really give us any of that. We do get a tiny bit of forensics, but nothing in any interesting detail. It's about a killer, or a potential killer, who has been in jail, but he's about to go free because it turns out that the conviction happened because of a dirty cop. And this has all come about, so he's going to be released from prison, and CSI realise that this is not a good idea because he did kill somebody and he will do it again if he's released. So it's a race against the clock as they have to try and find a crime that he committed to get him convicted. And that sounds like it could have been really compelling, but honestly it's really dull, it's really boring, and not a lot happens. And then something did happen. I thought, okay, this could be potentially fascinating, but then they didn't really lean into it in a way that I would have found interesting. As I said, spoilers, so I can't discuss what I mean by this. And it's when they found a crime that they could convict him of, but there was already somebody behind bars for that crime. I think stories of wrongful convictions are so fascinating. They're infuriating, they're often heartbreaking when they're true stories because people are put behind bars for decades and then eventually it's realised that they didn't commit the crime, and they're the most heartbreaking stories. But obviously when it's in fiction, when it's not a true story, they're really fascinating and fun to explore, and I think they could have done some great stuff with that. But honestly, I found that to be really weak. They didn't really do very much with it. So it started to get a bit interesting, but then it just fizzled out again. And there wasn't really anything... Actually, that's not true. I was going to say there wasn't anything in this that I liked, really, but there was one moment that I loved. And it's when Hodges was working in the lab and he was dancing a little bit to the music that was on. I really liked that sequence. And at the very beginning, we also have this gorgeous shot of a baseball. It is absolutely beautiful. So that was well done as well. So a few tiny things that I enjoyed. But in general, I found this to be very mundane and pretty much something that any crime drama could have done. It didn't really feel like it had that CSI stamp on it, unfortunately. So it's not great. I didn't really enjoy it. But I guess one episode every now and then not hitting the mark isn't too bad. I can't really complain.